a large global family-run business with a fairly strong corporate culture. Surprisingly, Bouygues is one of those companies that does a huge amount of many different diverse things, and surprisingly, many people have never heard of Bouygues. So I'll give you a very quick intro. The business was founded in 1952 by a chap called Francois Bouygues. And since that time, the business has grown significantly. We're in our 7th decade, and it's now run by his two sons, Olivier and Martin. And the business has 3 main areas. That's construction and services, media and telecoms. As I said, they're led today by Francois and Martin Bouygues. As a business, we're present in over 100 countries and have somewhere around 120,000 employees and an annual sales target of around 30 billion euros a year.
That's amazing. How a couple of brothers and a family business can grow to such an empire. That is so significant.
Yeah. It's quite an inspiring story and quite an inspiring business, to be honest.
Yeah, I see a lot of posts on LinkedIn of what the teams are doing. I'm always so impressed with the company and the initiatives. And that's why today, I know it's not your responsibility to drive all of these initiatives, but you are a recipient of them. So, you know, we want to get a perspective of you as a regional director, maybe how you influence that agenda, and also how you receive the information and any challenges in there. And this whole point is to help, if you like, small and medium enterprises, people who are like your supply chain, how they can learn and take on some of the initiatives that you have or make it their own. So first of all, I wanted to start with something that's really significant, that's on the mind of everybody, and that's climate change. So I'd like to know how you balance being commercial and also responding to climate change. What challenges do you have in that space, and how does we go about it?
Yeah, I guess for us, we're quite fortunate, because if you go back in history, construction has probably been a significant negative contributor to environment and sustainability and the use of materials, etc. And I think over the years, the companies that lead well and do well and will succeed have really taken on board and recognised that there's a real serious, genuine corporate responsibility that has to be understood and almost led from the front now, in terms of what do we do as an organisation that's involved in heavy construction. There's always going to be a need for it. As humans on the planet, people need the things to be re-landscaped. We need homes, we need buildings, we need schools, we need hospitals. So it's something that's always going to be a need for us, but what can we do to be more responsible? And I think that large construction companies like Bouygues, and they're not alone, the industry is much more proactive now in terms of what can it do to reduce its impact. But it has to have, I guess, at the heart of its vision and its mission, a real eye and a real hand on what are we going to do to contribute positively to the environment, how are we going to reduce our carbon impact, and what are we going to do to make the environment much stronger and healthier in the future. And thankfully for us, one of our core visions is decarbonisation. And there's a clue in the title, because the division I work for is Bouygues Energies and Services. And one of the things that we focus on as an energy service provider is how can we assist our clients to become more carbon friendly, more carbon neutral? How can we reduce our impact? And how can we become more effective in our day-to-day business operations? And of course, there's a huge benefit in terms of reducing the carbon impact on the climate and on the animal world and on us in general, air quality. But also as a side benefit, there's an enormous financial reward in terms of looking after these things as well. So for us, it's become a real key and core mission and very much a pillar of our business plan.
Yeah, and also, do you find that it's more of a demand from employees coming into the company, what they value when they assess you as a future employer?
Absolutely, Christina. I think the world is changing, and if I don't want to sound like I'm too old school, but if I reverse back about 30 years when I first started work, I didn't really understand, what corporate values were. I didn't really understand what my values were. It wasn't something that was high on my agenda. But the world is changing, and we're seeing much more young people coming into business now, having learnt this at school or university, and their values are fairly clear. They're interested in working for companies that they can be proud of. They're interested in working for companies that have got strong values and strong morals in terms of the environment and sustainability. So it's very much a moving feast, and it's going in the right direction.
Well, thanks for that, Lee. And also, our stakeholders and who we have to account to and stand up in front of face to face are our potential clients. I know you work with many hospitals. Do you find an increasingly attention to what you're doing in this space? Do they look at you and ask for your credentials when you're quoting for new contracts?
Yeah, absolutely. Not so much. Not so much the hospitals yet, but I'm sure it's coming. But the majority of our new business through public sector organisations are very interested in our credentials in terms of CSR and sustainability. It's very much a new pillar, I guess, now in terms of what stakeholders are demanding. There's a pre-qualification questionnaire process that we tend to go through, and it's not just a case of ticking a box and saying that we're aware of our carbon impact, but it's also about what are we doing to reduce it, how are we monitoring it, how do we report it on an ongoing basis, and I guess how do we demonstrate that we're credible?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, in terms of your investments into new technologies, whether it's in your energy services or you as an organisation, and how you communicate or how you actually operate on your projects and so on, what are the big investments that you may have made recently, or what are you thinking about making? Which direction are you going in?
That's a big question, that one, Christina. I guess to answer that question, I'd first have to say that we need to understand our customer, because if we don't understand our customer, then we can't deliver the right solution. And hand in hand with that is we have to have the right data available to us to make sure that solutions that we're putting forward are viable and they're correct and they're what the customer needs. I think a lot of our customers, if we don't understand their needs, then you end up in a situation where it becomes a commercial transaction, and you provide them with a project and they provide you with a paycheck, and the relationship's finished. What we're looking for is long-term relationships where we can provide projects for our clients that assist them in the long term and maintain a long partnership with us, because we want to continue our partnerships and evolve together over time. There's, sustainability is not new, and it's never going to be old. There's always going to be a need to continuously improve, and for us to follow that path with our clients.
Yeah,
so,
sorry, Lee.
Yeah, everyone, go ahead.
I was going to say it's never just about, for example, what you do as a company. It's how you work together with your clients, isn't it? It's collaboration, and how you actually work with your supply chain or your teams to deliver the project. If there isn't that communication and joint approach, it's not sustainable in the long term.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. So we're very careful and very clear about our supply chain, and we almost expect our supply chain are an extension of our business. There's a huge amount of intelligence and innovation out there in the SME world, and we work closely with our SMEs to try and bring new innovations and new solutions to our clients, because as I said there, and as you just alluded to, the long-term potential for the relationship with our clients is what we're looking for. It's not a one-hit wonder project. What we're looking for is how can we be partners with our clients and work with them in the long term.
Yeah, I think this is a change in approach, isn't it, to relationships? Because there'll be many companies watching this, and of course, there's always the pressure to win business when you're in business. But it's actually, if you like, business comes when you actually start aligning in your thoughts and serving the client. So I think that's really important. Do you have any tips for any small companies trying to work with large companies or win contracts, public procurement contracts, in terms of how they might tweak their approach or be conscious of, you know, their relationship as they're bidding for a contract?
Yeah, I think so. I think you've to be successful, you need to have a long-term vision, and everything you do needs to have an element of long-term thinking and bigger picture. There are quite often companies that will shortcut their success because they need the win right now, and sometimes that's a little bit short-sighted, because whilst you could have earned say a bigger margin by doing a quick fix or a quick win now, the amount of work and business that you could progress with if you was a little bit less aggressive commercially and a little bit more partner focused makes a huge difference. So I think what probably one of my biggest tips would be, think about long term and think about what it means to be in partnership with someone for a long time, and almost think of your client as a comrade or an ally or someone that you're going to be making improvements with over a long period.
Yeah, working together. I totally agree. I totally agree with that. Lee, I want to turn to looking at resilience, and we've had to be more resilient recently. But, you know, globally, people are having to be resilient even before COVID. But, you know, for the likes of us, it's become more in the forefront since COVID, because there's been so much going on, people having challenges outside of the workplace, vulnerabilities in the workplace. Have there been any discussions at this level, at an industry level, you know, about this subject and how it can be addressed, and what are you guys doing in that space?
Well, I think it's a real key point, Christina, because there's a lot of focus at the moment on innovation and efficiency. There's a lot of focus on sustainability and CSR, but ultimately it's your staff and it's the human factors that are just as important, and you need to have as much focus and as much attention into those elements of your business as you do in all of the other things that, you know, the clients are looking for. I mean, if I give you an example, I mean, I've been in the workplace now for around just over 30 years, and I've always been in a role where health and safety has been important. But if I go back a few years, the word health kind of got lost, and everybody went straight to safety, and everyone would talk about accidents, injuries, prevention, hazards, near misses, process, risk assessment. And if you ever stop to think about health a few years ago, then maybe you might associate that with work-related illness such as COSH, you know, control of substances, or making sure you're not exposing people to asbestos, or making sure that you've got certain practices in place that preserve health, or, you know, prevent people's hearing loss. And it's only really in the last probably 4 or 5 years or so where actually there's been a real shift change in what health actually means. And it's really nice to see that that's much more centered around people now, not just about physical harm and injury, but also about almost about their emotion, almost about their mental well-being, almost about where they fit in the organisation, how they feel in the organisation. One of the things that we do every year is we have a week-long safety week campaign. I mean, safety is something that's important to us, and it's top of our agenda at all times. But one of the things that we try to do every single year is have a week-long health and safety week. And the last couple of years have centered very, very heavily around resilience and around caring for people and well-being and management of stress and making sure people have got the right support. So, yeah, I think you're right, Christina, there's been a big change recently, and we have to be more resilient. And I think we're only going to be more resilient if we understand what the issues are.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I was curious because you said how many employees you have all over the world. How do you reach those people? Do you have any structures or mechanisms to finding out how people are? You know, whether they have issues, whether they're struggling. Do you have anything formally in place in that, or is it really about training their supervisors to look out for things and to do the right things? Is there an approach at the moment, or any thoughts around how we look after the workforce?
Yeah, no, there is, and I'm sure that globally across the whole of the Bouygues business, the standards are the same. There's a very well-known process within Bouygues that talks about minimum standards for construction sites, etc., making sure that people have got the right facilities. But talking a little bit more locally in the UK, one of the things that we've got as part of our UK operations with Bouygues is we've got a phenomenal network that's been set up to focus on some of these key areas for us. We've got one that's called We Link, which specialises as a network for women in business, and it's about giving them support, mentoring, coaching, opportunities, training, bringing in external speakers to give, I suppose, what's the word I'm looking for? Inspiration, yeah. Yeah, inspiration, yeah. We've also got trained mental health first aiders as well within the business. We've got over 100 in our FM business. We've also got a network set up called Diversity and Inclusion, and we've got people that are trained up as what we call FIR ambassadors. And what FIR stands for is fairness, inclusion, and respect. And it's a little bit like teaching people allyship and looking out for each other and recognising when someone needs help. One of the things that the business also has as well, which I think is fantastic, is they have a system called Safe Call, where any person anywhere within the business, if they feel that they're being not treated right, or they've got an issue or a concern, they can dial that number perfectly confidentially, and it will be investigated and taken seriously. So I think that the business does a huge amount. In fact, almost too much to list. It does more than I'm even aware of, to be honest. There's so much.
I think they're brilliant examples. I think that's really important. I knew you guys would be doing something in that space, but it really is important now. And you know, I like the example about fairness. I think that is something that's most important to everyone. That crosses the whole globe and every individual. If you think something's not fair, it's so upsetting. And I think fairness, and in a business level, it boils down to equal opportunities, doesn't it? Opportunity for promotion.
Absolutely.
Opportunity to have your voice at the table, you know, and that's where we have the inclusion.
Absolutely.
The people who've got great things to add, but they feel a bit shy to pull it, you know, pulling people in, putting a spotlight on their achievements. So, you know, I think that fairness, it's such a simple word, but it's so important to get right.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that brings me to my next question. I always ask you about this because I love the program, because you've told me about it, and you know what it is. It's how you capture the ideas. You know, I was totally amazed, because we knew now with that number of employees in your company, that brain power focused on improvements, whether it's customer experience, the way the company is run, employee experience. You've got a system of capturing the ideas from your workforce, and it's inclusive, isn't it? Do you want to tell us how it works or what it is?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess it's our innovation platform, and I guess if I start from the beginning, I can't take any credit for it. But I was invited to a corporate conference in France, and it was the idea of our CEO at the time, and he put together a 5-year plan, and it was called Bouygues 2020. and the idea, this was back in 2015, 2016 when it was being developed, and the idea is that he wanted to shift us from a organisation that was hierarchical and less inclusive and much more collaborative and much more working together, breaking down silos and really looking at what we could do to continuously improve our operations. And I think one of the biggest successes of that program was what we called the Makers program. And just in very simple terms, anybody in the business can be a maker. And the maker essentially means someone that comes up with an idea and is able to make that idea come to life, get support, and then try it out. And it didn't matter, Christina, whether the idea was good or bad, whether it worked or whether it didn't. It was all about creating an environment where people wanted to innovate, wanted to try, wanted to come forward and just have a go at doing something for the good of the business or for the good of the employees. Because the other good thing about it as well is that in order for it to qualify as a good idea or an innovation, all it had to do was improve something. It didn't matter whether it was improve the customer experience, the business efficiency, the employee experience. It was something that added value. So the way that the business structured this was, first of all, it said it wanted people to come forward. So it was a very inclusive program. So it was almost permission from the business to go create. And then in order to try and capture that, a process was put in place and there was some training, and they set out a number of processes. So you had people could become champions. So you would become almost a maker champion. And then we had a process to follow to support people that had ideas. And then we had platforms to communicate those. And then ultimately, any idea that went through, we use an app. They was assigned with a champion. They went through what we call a business canvas model, where you sit down and you map out the idea. What's the problem? What's the solution you're bringing? What budget do you need? Is it scalable? What's the benefit? And you start to really challenge and think about the idea and get the creative juices flowing and work out how you can then run a pilot scheme. And then it would be sponsored by someone from the exec team so that they were supported and there was a budget. And then ultimately it would end up in like a Dragon's Den type arrangement where the executive committee would select some of the most successful ideas or the best ideas on paper, and it would go right through to a Dragon's Den, which was great, a good experience for all of the staff, all of the makers. And then ultimately they get to see their ideas be either implemented or migrated into something else.
I think it's absolutely fabulous. I could feel that would be quite exciting. And sometimes as a member of a team, you have an idea, you don't know where to take it, but you guys actually set up this system where there was a place to take it and a process to go through. And I know that you also at the beginning, you put the rules of these ideas, didn't you? You know, it had to have certain criteria. So people knew the rules of the game, and they knew that every idea wasn't going to be successsul. They knew that at the outset. So they felt it was fair and it was a challenge. And I think that's what I appreciated about that program. Do you? Yeah,
it's, as I say, it's a fantastic program, and we completed the Bouygues 2020 vision, if you like, and where we've got to now is we're now embarking upon our next 5-year program, which brings the Makers program along with it. But the new 5-year vision is Together Further. So it's about bringing everybody together. And I mean, we've got lots of entities of Bouygues within the UK. So how can we work better to support ourselves and become one solution to all of our clients? How can we work closer with our clients together? How can we work closer with our staff together? So it's a nice natural evolution.
I think that's brilliant, Lee, because, and I think that was something I was going to ask you, because we know that in business now, it's that constant innovation and new ideas that keeps us fresh and keeps us different. So we do have to get this, and there's no end to it. It's constant, and actually how we articulate that message. So you've got the combination of both of them, the new ideas of people at the front line involved in this, and because it comes from them, they have a passion and can tell tell that story. Do you have an example of an idea that came out and made it all the way through to change some aspect of the business?
Probably lots and lots of examples there. I'll give you one. I'll give you one example that's personal to me because it's easier to tell the story. One of the things that I put through the Makers program was a staff engagement idea, and Bouygues is a very, very strong brand, and everything. If you look at most of our businesses, so Bouygues Construction will be prefixed with BYCN. Bouygues Energies and Services is prefixed as BYES. So BY represents Bouygues, and obviously Bouygues very proud of its name. So I designed a staff engagement program that started with BY, and we called it BY Aces. And basically, when you break down what BY Aces stands for, it stands for best service for B. The Y element represents you as the employee. The A represents asset management. The C represents client and contract insight. E represents engaged employees, and S represents safe in all that we do. And what we did was we put that through the Makers program in terms of using that as a template for our facilities management teams in how we go beyond service and how we really engage with our clients, give all of our staff a common message and give them a platform for success. And where I was really well assisted by the business through the Makers program is that I was partnered with the learning and development team, and we put together a quite comprehensive training campaign, and we created champions and we rolled this out across a number of sites. And it was a really good opportunity for me to be able to put my engagement process through the program and actually see it come out the other end as an approved idea and a success that was available for any contract to roll out.
Ole, that's a brilliant story, and actually, I think you've just answered my next question, because my next question was about executive development, and I wanted to ask you about mentoring and what are the most important areas to be mentored, what's vital for today. But I can see when you're the language you've used is you are matched with the learning and development, but that's sort of the same thing, isn't it? It's about filling the gaps and showing you how it moves on to the next stage. But are there any other areas of mentoring? How does that executive development look for you?
Well, I mean, mentoring is another avenue that we have available to us. I feel very lucky, I guess, working for Bouygues. It's easy to answer a lot of your questions because someone in our exec team's already thought about this stuff and we have it in place, so it makes life easier for me. But I'm a mentor within our business, and every year I mentor 2 people, and then we rotate. I'm also mentored as well, as in my role. I'm fortunate enough, I was very lucky. I'm being mentored at the moment by our UK chairperson, so the highest person we have in the UK. So I'm very lucky, very honoured. But all of our executive team are expected and asked to mentor at least 2 people each year. But we also do reverse mentoring. We do coaching. It's incredibly rewarding, but it's not just a case of you're matched up with someone and you become their buddy. We've also got support from our learning and development team, and we've got mentoring training. We've got mentoring plans, and the idea is that we sit down and we discuss the plan with our mentees, and we do the best we can to give them the best opportunities to get the best from the experience.
Could you elaborate a little bit more for our international audience about your experience with the reverse mentoring?
Yeah, absolutely. So we also have. I'll start in a slightly different space. So we also have in our business a very successful and a very established graduate program, and we bring a lot of fantastic talent into our business every single year through our graduate program, and also we do the same for an apprenticeship program as well. So we try and cover all angles and all bases. But one of the things that our graduates are slightly ahead of the game on than us is technology, and not everybody my age is backwards in technology, I have to say, but I really benefited from having some reverse digital mentoring about 2 years ago, and one of the graduates was good enough and patient enough to work with me through all of these new platforms that we're now using. So things like Yammer, things like Teams, Office 365, Cloud, all of the things that were new to us. And I think under normal circumstances, most businesses would have had 2, 3, 4 year plans in terms of how they're going to address digital transformation. And unfortunately, as everybody is aware, with the global pandemic, a lot of people had to work remotely and work differently. We was also subject to a cyber attack as well, which meant that Office 365 and cloud technology become a real saviour for us because our servers were out for a while. So we had a real baptism of fire in terms of how quickly can we get up to speed with our digital transformation. And I think we achieved probably in 3 to 6 months a really competent level of using this new digital platform, versus if we'd have done it the traditional way, there would have been a project plan, there would have been a 5-year plan, there would have been a rollout plan, and there would have been people lagging behind. But we was forced into a situation where we had to do it quickly and effectively, for the business and for our staff. And I was very fortunate to have a patient mentor to take me through the stages of how to use these applications much more effectively. So I was a real beneficiary in that case.
I think that's fabulous, Lee. And I think that with that story, that applies to so many people. So many of us are in that situation. We have our preferred platforms. I'm not too bad, but I believe if you don't understand, you must understand. And
Absolutely.
And I know there'll be a lot of people listening to this. They're probably leading organizations. They're probably own organizations. And they know that they'll be struggling with certain platforms, and they think, oh, what do I do? But I think that's get a mentor, whether it's from a local college or university, bring somebody in, because not everyone's got a huge organization like Bouygues. We haven't all got an intake of graduates or apprentices coming in. So it's about just if you don't know, find out, get somebody in to show you. There's no substitute. And you're right, we've all have to become familiar. I think as Rohit Talwar said to us, it has to become intimate, so it's second nature for us to use these technologies.
Absolutely agree. And I think the thing is as well, one of the other real key movements going forward is data. And everybody's talking about data and using data to make decisions and using data to understand better and using data to be efficient. And some of the platforms that are available now to make real sense of that data are surprisingly good. And unless you're aware of these systems and unless you've got access to these systems and you can use them, you're potentially missing out on some really, really good benefits. And just by working, there's another system, I'm sure many of the viewers will be aware of, Power BI. But what you can do with data and how you can grab live data and turn it into valuable information, and what some of these very talented people in our business can do is fantastic. And for me, I'm happy I can just use the system. But the creativity of some of these people that develop the system and put the information in and give you a fantastic report is great. It saves a huge amount of time as well in terms of administration and report writing and just having access to information at your fingertips. It's really quite impressive.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think gone are the days when it's instinct, it's a judgment call, it's a consensus of opinion. Now you need to have it backed up by some evidence. And in the olden days, it was very expensive to get the evidence. And now we've got, opportunities to get that information and make good decisions based on what the data tells you. And then you can use your consensus to interpret and listen to the insights from the data, and then put your own personal touch on that in case there's something not right. But I totally agree, and I think it's brilliant that the resources that we've got. But again, it's about people don't know what they don't know. And I think that's why it's important to be curious about what's out there, what resources, speak to businesses, attend conferences like this so you get to know. Can you, you've mentioned in Business BI, was that you mentioned?
Power BI, yeah.
Power BI, okay. At least I got the right title in there. That's great.
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk about this month. I know you've had a big focus on diversity and inclusion, and there's been a big campaign in the company. Has there been any big impact from your perspective point of view? Did you have any realizations or anything different that you thought, oh yeah, that would be useful to keep mindful of?
Yeah, I think so, Christina. I think on reflection, when the business suggested that there was going to be a diversity and inclusion week, it was okay, great. That's a really good thing to do. How's it going to work? And I think that there was some initial disappointment from the business that we wasn't able to get lots of people together in a room and do presentations in person and shake people's hands and see people face to face. But obviously, given the current situation around the pandemic, etc., not a wise move. So they decided to, rather than have one day, they turned it into a 1 week campaign and did a 2-hour introduction on the Monday, and then an hour on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And to cut a long story short, coming off the back of that week's worth of small bite-sized chunks of diversity and inclusion, almost completely changed my view and the way I thought I understood diversity and inclusion. Because I think as generally people with good moral standards and a good moral compass and people that are fair, they get what diversity and inclusion is all about. But they only get what it's about from their perspective. And it's not until you actually hear from professional speakers or people with personal stories about what it must feel like for them to actually go through feeling disadvantaged or not recognised or treated differently is really quite an eye-opener. And it drew me back to when I was younger as well, because we talk about diversity and inclusion. Of course, there's specific groups where it's more prevalent, but even for myself, when I was a young man and I started my working career in the chemical industry, and as a young manager trying to make his way and trying to establish himself in a team, I was bullied quite badly on reflection when I think back, by the older managers that didn't want to make way for younger people or didn't feel that I'd earned my right or my place. And I think if I think back to how I felt personally back then, and then think back to how other groups may feel now, it's really quite humbling to realise that, you know, it draws you back into the emotion that you went through. And then it brings to life the problems that people do face in the workplace. And I think a lot of the networks that we have in place at Bouygues are really well established and well set up to cater for us having probably some of the best success in making sure that these diverse groups are included and that they are able to feel like they have equal opportunities and that we. And then one of the things our chairperson says is that our success is going to be through diversity. It's going to be through people from all walks of life and all backgrounds bringing themselves and their whole selves to work and contributing to our future. So it was a real eye opener for me. I've also got a disabled daughter, my youngest, and again I think if we're doing this now in 2022. Hopefully we'll be amazing at this by the time we get to 2040. and she'll be able to go into a workplace with any luck, and this will just be second nature. So everything's progressive, Christina, and I think for me, the big eye-opener is that it's not just about how we think about diversity and inclusion, it's about how other people feel about it that's important.
Yeah, and ownership of responsibility. People of influence, people in power positions, if they're not doing anything in that space, they're leaving something out that they have a responsibility for. And as we said before, if you don't understand, then you must understand, because we have to put a spotlight on these issues so we can address them. So, you know, I do appreciate your input for that, and your passion in that subject, and I feel that too. Well, Lee, I've taken so much of your time. We've dug into every corner of the business, and I think we've got an overview of what you guys are doing about your people, for society and community, for future of the business. Is there anything else you want to add before we close our session or discussion?
I guess just take the opportunity to say that I'm very lucky to work for an organisation like Bouygues. I'm very proud to work for Bouygues. I think it's a fantastic organisation, and I think the business has got a fantastic future. And if what we're doing can help influence other companies to do similar things, then that's fantastic, because it's all about learning and progressing together. Yeah,
exactly, all together. Brilliant. Okay, Lee, well, till the next time that we meet and have a conversation like this, all I can do is say thank you very much.
That's a pleasure. Thanks very much, Christina.
Thank you. Bye.